चाओ चाओ दोस्तों, कैसे हो आप लोग? बहुत ही खास वीडियो आ रहा है. This is a very very special video. This is on the Maldini legacy, and with me I have Chintan, who is a Milanista since he was born. Let's be fair, the perfect person to speak about the Maldini family, and Kaustubh, who's actually worked on a lot of articles with regards to Paolo Maldini and Cesare, and now the third generation Daniel Maldini. Welcome, boys. I'm really looking forward to having this chat.
Yeah, man, this is probably one of the most क्या बोलते हैं, a heartfelt, emotional video for me also, because when you talk about Maldini, like it resonates for every single Milan fan, and I guess football fans too. It's that word itself gives a smile to your face. You thrown back to that long hair, Paolo running and so
Aura.
calm and so aura. Yes, the aura. So it is just probably the best. Probably now I might be. I talk a lot. I might be probably loss of words, because when it comes to Paolo, when it comes to the Maldini dynasty, you are at loss of words at times.
Absolutely. And Costo is wearing this classic Italy jersey. And the
Oh,
occasion
amazing.
is obviously because Daniel Maldini has been called up to the Azzurri, the national team, the senior national team, for the first time. Costo, just as a fan, forget you're a journalist for a second. As a fan, to see Daniel Maldini now donning the famous Azzurri, how does it really feel?
Honestly, when it happened, it came as a bit of a shock to all of us because हमने group में discuss करा था.
Right.
Because about 4 weeks ago, we didn't really expect him to be anywhere near that selection ka criteria, because he scored a fair amount of goals in recent games. He's been called up, and as I said, we didn't really expect it. And we know Spalletti ka jo selection criteria hai, that is slightly different to what Italy has had in the past. He's always very happy to experiment, call up players from the Premier League. और कोहली को select करा था. So it came as a surprise, but again, we're all nostalgia merchants in a lot of ways. So yeah, and that's
Speaking
not a
of
bad thing at all. It's pretty human.
ऑफ कोर्स स्पीकिंग ऑफ नॉस्टैल्जिया, भाइयों बहनों, अभी आप कुर्सी की पेटी बांध दो, बिकॉज हम लोग एक मेमोरी ट्रिप पे जाने वाले हैं विद चिंतन. बिकॉज चिंतन, आई एम गोइंग टू आस्क यू अबाउट द ग्रेट मैन हिमसेल्फ, Paolo Maldini. Man, I mean, he is Milan. I mean, growing up in our era, like Milan symbolizes Maldini and vice versa. So you know your thoughts, your initial thoughts, when we were young and you saw this guy, right, like you mentioned, with a long hair. Take us through the journey, man, of Paolo Maldini. The floor is yours.
Yeah, man. Probably, you can say the man who made me fall in love with football, not just Milan, is probably football. And at times, we see what a captain should be. For me, he symbolized everything: a leader, a man with passion, a man who played with his heart on his sleeve, the man who symbolized loyalty. There are so many things. The principles, and it's so funny because when I started watching football, of course, I saw Euros 2000, of course, which was probably Italy doing so well and losing out in the finals, and the disappointment. And I was like, who is this bloody haircon? Such an elegant player, and of course that team was filled with superstars. And then I remember watching Milan win 6-0 against Inter, and he was there playing with a very disturbed Helweg and Rocket Junior start kiya tha. Milan was kind of injury crisis, and of course he was there and to save the day. And since then I fell in love with the jersey, the player. And over the years I never knew there was a Milan without Maldini, till he retired.
Yeah.
I was like, and there was a video doing around in 2007 of his Daniel tackling Seedorf, and everyone was like, okay,
Seedorf.
this guy's, yeah. So it is such a beautiful feeling to watch him play. And I can't describe it. It is when he used to tackle and when he used to run, the control, the calmness. I'll just give you a short a small example. Against Arsenal, we were 1-0 down at San Siro, and of course Arsenal or any English team had not won at San Siro till that time. And uh, they scored, and Cesc Fabregas, of course, celebrated pretty wildly. and Gattuso was very pissed off because he wanted to restart the game, and Paolo said, "Let it be. He's a kid. Let him celebrate." And
Right.
I know I've spoken to a lot of Arsenal fans, and they were shocked. They were like, "Who is this man? So graceful in a defeat at home, being the captain." That just symbolizes for me what that man was. That he understood what the passion is, and Cesc was a kid that time, and that the when of course he retired, and the retirement was coming closer. It's no shame saying that I cried. I had tears in my eyes when he retired, and till now,
Of course.
when I revisit those videos, I get goosebumps. I get tears. Leave football aside. Leave how talented a player he was. Sometimes football takes a backseat. I just like what a human being, what a human being he was, and wo jo hai abhi bhi. इसलिए for some fans like us, when Maldini left Milan, abhi jo recently job vacant kiya hai, a little part of us died and left with us. So Ajay Kaustubh, I can proudly say that I am a Milan fan through and through, but I will always be a Maldini fan.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Kaustubh, yeah, Maldini is probably, he defines a generation of players, generation of fans like Chintan who supported Maldini. And I don't think so. He is hated by any other rival club. Like, I would always
Hmm.
want a Milan jersey, being a Romanista, but with a Maldini 3 at the back. Like, no other player
Hmm.
but Paolo. But he is not the only Maldini that got glory for Milan as well as Italy for that matter. I'm talking about Cesare Maldini, and ये एक article है जो जिसपे तूने contribute किया हुआ है. So can you tell the viewers a bit more about Cesare Maldini, because obviously Paolo Maldini is synonymous, but what about Cesare, his father?
I think, uh, like generally speaking, from a broader perspective, when we look around the sport, we don't see dynasties like these exist. I won't say anymore, but even in general, हमने ऐसा कभी नहीं हुआ कि where we've seen three generations of the same family play at a pretty high level. Although Daniel still to say reach
Yeah,
that level, but he could yet reach that level, but he's still playing professionally.
yep,
So I think a lot of it, a lot of that professionalism and commitment probably comes from Cesare's father or Paolo Maldini's grandfather, who used to work in the Italian Navy. And being someone who knows what that discipline or that ethic is when your parents work with the government, or they essentially have a very strict, I won't say strict, but a very regimented approach in a lot of ways, where you have to be a certain way and it gets passed down as well. So he came
yeah,
from that background where being a certain way was very important. And there is, in that Calcio Mercato article, if you अगर वो pull up करोगे, तो उसमें you'll
yeah,
read that Cesare Maldini was always someone. The article has actually been written by someone I know who was with the team, with the Calcio Mercato ka English team when I was there. And the way we used to work was that this is Calcio Mercato English. Calcio Mercato Italian is different. But again, we had a link. जो opinion या कोई exclusive news होता है, we get it and we translate it and write it in our own words, basically.
yeah,
So this was actually done by someone who was pretty close to Cesare Maldini, and we had to like translate it into an English version. So
right,
we worked on that, and this person who wrote it has actually written it really well, even in Italian. When we ended up reading it, I think वो link होगा कहीं पे, but there is one line which says that which is actually a bit um, sad. I don't know if it's sad or not. It's fairly emotional that this Cesare Maldini was constantly seen as someone who drifted his gaze into nothingness a lot of times. Like he used to stare at absolutely nothing sometimes. वो
right,
होता है ना कि
right.
you just
Yeah,
look at something but nothing in particular.
yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
they
He
say
used to
this
be.
is
He was
because
used to. He was
exactly.
used to gazing into the distance.
So that's because he was so used to saying goodbye to his father who was in the Italian Navy. So उस time flights का उतना नहीं था. You only
Bilkul.
had ships to travel with, or on
Yeah.
Right.
to travel on. So his father used to go on these ships, and Cesare Maldini grew sort of accustomed to saying goodbye to him when he was leaving. So when he used to pass from that on that ship, वो दूर से bye बोलते थे. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that habit sort of carried on to his daily life even as an adult. So, and yeah, as a just to look at his achievements as well, he was a very like usme, I think it's in the article that the person who's actually written the article initially in Italian, Cesare Maldini actually helped him get into Gazzetta dello Sport,
Yeah.
and the journalist didn't even know that he had played a role.
Yeah.
So he was always a very
Man of his
helpful,
word.
exactly, man of his words, very professional, thorough, and a leader as well. वो leadership वाला जो एक I guess trait है, that's
Streak.
like carried on. And
Yeah.
as I said, they had a very regimented way. Regimented, I'm not sure if it's the right word or not, because a lot of people can like see it in a negative way because it's too structured, but very disciplined and professional approach. And it's
Right.
like carried on till now. And I guess, if, the one part which I always find very interesting in a tactical perspective, because I'm talking about broader ideas or broader pointers, is that Cesare Maldini was a very catenaccio manager.
Yeah.
Um, the man he played under Nerio Rocco, he was the one of the pioneers in the 60s and 50s for catenaccio,
Bilkul.
alongside someone like Helenio Herrera. So
Yeah.
he grew into that manager who used similar principles as well. But in the 1990s, we had this era in Italian football, obviously Arrigo Sacchi, who said that we will use zonal marking, 4-4-2 zonal marking, which is how Pep Guardiola grew in, because Guardiola seeks a lot of inspiration from Sacchi himself, so does Ancelotti.
Yeah.
That was the era where Cesare Maldini's ideas sort of, not his ideas, but Catenaccio ideas started dying down. 4-4-2
Yeah.
zonal marking का and man marking का जो concept था, not man marking, zonal marking, came into
Bilkul.
being. But when Paolo Maldini came in, he became probably the best zonal marking defender of all time. So it's like it's not
Passing the
like
baton.
passing the baton, and he managed him as well while being Italy
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
98.
and it's weird because he was criticized when Italy got knocked out in the quarterfinals at the 98
Yeah.
World Cup,
98
I think
World
on
Cup.
penalties.
Penalties. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and after they went out, he was criticized for his approach, because that was a period in Italian football which was, I guess, fraught with these tactical debates.
Right.
Which is better, Catenaccio, the sit back, man for man sort of approach, or the zonal marking approach in a 4-4-2 or in a back four?
Right.
I
Yeah.
guess it was only natural that it was his son who was one of the pioneering defenders for the zonal marking approach. And I guess it was probably meant to be. And combine that with the fact that they always had this very professional approach to things. I guess it just had to be.
Bilkul, bilkul. I think, Chintan, like you mentioned, Nerio Rocco being an inspiration, and
Yeah.
the, I think the Maldini dynasty, apart from the discipline, got accustomed to winning honors for both Milan and of course Italy. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Milan का जो Champions League title, they were the first team to win, who were not an Iberian or an English team, right, Chintan?
Yes. Yes. 1963, and European glory was pretty much like that time it was, of course, not a lot of teams played European football, and 58 May he did have a heartbreak, losing to, of course, Real Madrid. So 63 May to chase that and to win it against, of course, a very, very, very star-studded Benfica team actually. And of course, Benfica that time was a pretty star-studded team. So
Right.
as you said that that attitude of never give up to come back. Of course, everyone knows. Of course, Paulo's losses too in the Champions League. So yeah, that this it's imbibed, and of course, unfortunately we've not seen him play. But जितना हम लोग ने पढ़ा है, he was also a very graceful centre back. A strong centre back, graceful. So decent with both the feet. जो the reason why I'm saying this because Paolo was a winger first initially, right? Winger पे आया था. He won the Milan Primavera in the 84-85. Then the Niels Lidlong said that उसको पीछे खेलना चाहिए because he's so comfortable with both the feet. So it is probably inherited from his father, and this iconic image of course him lifting the Champions League then compared to Paolo and captaining Milan at the highest level. It
And
is something.
it's probably a coincidence or not. Nils Lidon was actually a teammate with Cesare Maldini,
Cesare
Yeah.
Paolo.
during the 60s as well, and probably one of the greatest goal scorers in Italian
Yeah.
football history as well.
Yeah,
So
so it is it.
again वो transition है. There is that direct नहीं है obviously because it's like there's a 20-year gap, probably a 20-year gap between उनके playing careers,
Yeah.
but there is a correlation in everything.
And actually अजय जो हम लोग पहले ऑफलाइन बात कर रहे थे that of course जो एक ये factor that of course he was initially from not from Milan actually. Cesare Maldini wasn't a Milan youth product, so of course Nerio Rocco is a big inspiration for him. He got him to Milan, he followed him into a managerial career. He was an assistant when Milan won the Cup Winners' Cup, so
Right.
actually Cesare did have a lot of decent success as an assistant manager and a manager too. And of course Kaustubh can of course tell us of course how बोल सकते Kaustubh that he kind of molded Italian golden generation because of winning the under 21 Euros 3 years in a row, and the star-studded names he actually coached. So you can say that, right? That he did. जैसे बोल रहे थे कि mid 90s में of course Arrigo Sacchi was everywhere, and
Not in
98
Roberto Baggio's heart though.
oh yes. So एक बोल सकते हैं Kaustubh that he is the one who probably एक not just one or two stars, but like a bunch of stars who went on to be not just Italian stars, but individual club legends. Yeah, names like Totti, Cannavaro, and all.
It's like people like him probably know how to create champions in a way.
Yeah.
They come from that background where, because a lot of times you'll read in a lot of articles, because obviously we don't know, we were probably not alive back then. Probably, we were obviously not alive.
We are not. We are not that old.
Safe to say we were not alive.
Yeah. We are not that
Paolo
old.
Maldini is probably as old as my father. हम Cesare की तो बात कर ही नहीं होगी.
हाँ.
So it's like a lot of times, a lot of reports that you read about Cesare Maldini is that he wasn't really happy with life as a teenager, and football for him was a way to
Get away.
express himself, escape or express his. I think it's in this article that they mentioned that it was his way to express frustration,
Yes.
to just be himself in a way. He just combined what he inherited from his father, the traits he inherited from his father, and the idea of playing football. And he's pretty much like translated it everywhere, to his grandfather, to his grandson, to the 2006 World Cup winning team, and probably beyond as well, because there's a link. 2006 mein, the team that won the World Cup, a lot of times, a lot of them went into managerial roles. Cannavaro himself, like last season, he was with Udinese as manager, unfairly left the club as well. So there's a whole network, or network thoda business term ho gaya, but the I guess
legacy,
tree,
I would say.
yeah, the entire tree of how Italian football grew and became great. It's probably starts with, or doesn't, if not starts with, he's probably at the top somewhere, top of the tree.
Fair. Guys, moving on to the present, I found that video which kind of was a YouTube viral video. So ekdam trend hua. This is 2007 or 2006 maybe, and that's young Daniel Maldini tackling Seedorf there. There he is, just like his father.
What a tackle!
What a tackle!
What a tackle! What a tackle! And yeah,
Got the ball.
this kid is going to grow and become a defender. But that did not happen. He is an attacking midfielder. Doesn't play in the same position as his father. But Chintan, what were your thoughts, man, when you finally saw that name once again breaking out in the Milan Primavera? How did it feel? Ek to you must have felt old. Like obviously we feel old now.
Yeah. we exactly मेरे को लगा अभी तो उसका वो Seedorf वाला tackle देखा है. And fortunately his brother was of course molded to be a centre back, Christian, and tackle किया था Daniel ने, so unfortunately Christian का career didn't pan out and he wasn't that great. He roamed around a lot, even didn't land. Milan में भी बहुत रहा नहीं. But of course when Daniel was
I think he's
doing
an agent now. He's
retired. He's an agent now.
The last I read was that he was working with Fratese's agent.
Yes. He's still working with him. I think he's still working with him. Probably. So when you just naam dekhte ho piche and you're like, okay, you need to mold him, you need to preserve him in an airtight box, boss. This is the legacy, and it is just that. Initially, when we like, okay, what position, we started researching, and ye to attacking midfielder hai. We're like, okay, am I reading this right? Because again, another thing what we discussed is, एक जो dynasty होती है, number 3 jerseys, both उसके father and grandfather center backs, to get into his brother a center back and to become an attacking midfielder. हम लोग अभी जैसे ऑफलाइन डिस्कस कर रहे थे थुरम के साथ क्या हुआ, मतलब फादर क्या खे पोजीशन. सो इट्स वेरी रेयर कि वो एक सेंटर बैक, दूसरा सेंटर बैक क्रिश्चियन ऑफ कोर्स डिडंट वर्क आउट, बट ही वाज अ सेंटर बैक टू. सो देयर वर 3 जनरेशन ऑफ सेंटर बैक्स, एंड दिस वन गोइंग ऑफ very when he came in, of course, this baby face, like of course Paolo also, you see when he was playing, he was always a baby faced guy.
Still is.
So when Daniel was walking through the thing, Milan youth पे ज़्यादा नजर थे सबके that he will do well, and of course with Paolo coming back into the Milan mix, management में, we were all very hopeful that we'll see something good of him. We did see flashes of him, of course, but when he captained the under-19 team, there was a photo which was doing viral, that him all 3 with armbands, felt very complete, that at least he might not be in Milan now, but at least he got that armband, at least in somewhere. His father, of course, Paolo, did win the Primavera as a captain for Milan. So, it is just that when he walked on the pitch for the first time, I still remember that we felt proud, Ajay, सच्ची बोलूं, मेरे को लगा यार मेरा बेटा खेलने गया, ऐसे you feel like, come on man, we're rooting for you. And he's not with Milan anymore. And Ajay, I can probably say that you probably are rooting for him the most. You have faith in him the most. But I will always, but wherever he plays in the future, I hope he comes back to Milan. But wherever he plays, I will always, of course, root for him just because of the surname on his back. But Ajay, I must say that since the start, even being a Milanista, I was like, "Arey yaar, wo ja raha hai, it's okay." But what is it that you always had this faith in him? Did you see something in him?
In fact, Spalletti stole the words out of my head. Very, very technically good play. Like, how El Sharabi is, right? Very good technically. But I see that Daniel Maldini has good traits of playing in those half spaces. वो बहुत dangerous है. And of course, the picture of him returning back to Monza this year, signing a contract. And coincidentally, the last game was against Monza Roma. And he had a very decent game, very good shot save.
Yeah, very good.
Another image that I pulled out, this is obviously Galliani, who's the chief of Monza, Milan history, of course.
But वही ना अजय, ये फोटो देख के अगर कोई बोलेगा this is not at San Siro, people will laugh.
This is not at San Siro.
And this is not a Milan game. People will laugh like, how is that possible?
Absolutely. So I have a lot of faith. I still feel that he will make that romantic return to Milan, provided the environment is right. But the latest rumor, like Chintan, I'm not kidding you, he's linked with the movie Inter.
I just read it today. I was like, ouch, man. That is something.
He'll
But
stick with no creative.
Fratesi replacement.
Fratesi replacement. You know,
Ah,
just a funny thing, Ajay Kaustubh, when of course he was going through the Milan Youth Academy, when he went for trials when he was 8 or 9 years old, I think. It is said that he had a soft spot for Inter Milan, actually.
Yeah.
And he was afraid of his father. That Inter Milan was a decent thing. He said, I'm not a fan,
of course.
but I wouldn't mind them winning, something like that. And because he was so scared of his father, that, because Jesse Bola, regimented man, himself. And, Paolo still looks like, okay, you can have fun with him. Cesare had that look about him that don't mess with me.
Yeah.
So Paolo was a little scared. He wanted to, so in short, kya tha ki he wanted to do trials with Inter too. But I don't think he had an option over here. So he did trials, and being as gifted as a player he was, so it just worked out. But ek cheez batao, Ajay, like, you remember dates, right? I don't think any Milan fan here will not remember 20th January 1985, because that was the day he debuted against Udinese. It's just, and it is subconscious, Ajay. मेरे को ऐसा तू पूछेगा ना तो ऐसे याद आ रहा है. I have not particularly tried to memorize that date, but that 20th, it just
Sticks out.
etched in your memory, because that is the time I think you can say he was, जो एक love story वो start हुई थी.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely. And
it's like Chintan bhai mentioned that when Daniel Maldini made his debut, you felt proud, as if you are stepping out on the
yes,
pitch. खुद ही
yes,
खेलने वाले हो. And that tradition, I feel it's being lost in the game. I look
Yes.
at my own club. It's like I don't see much of an identity, but the only thing my club stands for is probably the youth. That
Yeah,
we
the number
always
of
win.
youth players.
When Mino plays, or when Toby Collier, Liverpool against, he came off the bench, you felt proud that even though we're probably losing this game, at least he's playing. So things like that, मैंने बोला that we're all, a lot of times
Nostalgic ones.
we feel, yeah, exactly, and it matters, be it
yeah,
emotionally or to just to like the game even more sometimes, because abhi, we know a lot
It's
of us are not really inclined towards
it's a
watching
mechanical
football.
cost. I think हम लोग इतने टाइम से फॉलो कर रहे हैं ना गेम को, we just follow it. And
Yeah.
it is, एक चीज अजय बोल सकते हैं, this is culturally pretty rich in Italy. All these things
Mm.
matter more in Italy,
Even to
And
Roma,
yeah,
not
I
just
was just going to get to Roma, that everyone is rooting for Pellegrini to do well, because we want that कि पहले Totti था, De Rossi आया,
yeah.
we want Bove to do well. We were all upset when Bove left, not just Ajay. That
yeah,
we are, as you said, Kostu, perfect word, nostalgic merchants, but we want that value, that club value होना चाहिए यार, otherwise it
Yeah.
feels like an empty game. It's just that a business transaction. And Ajay, हम लोग जैसे बात कर रहे थे, जैसे हमारे owners है, which is of course another direction only, but
yeah,
the game is getting there, right? So, as you said, when you talk about Totti, no one hates Totti, man. It's because it's synonymous. The value.
this,
You first thing याद
this,
आती है, and of course, two things. One is value. Bandira उनको इसलिए बुलाते थे. Loyalty, value. So that is what imbibe. And Ajay, we swear by it too, right? मतलब बोल सकते हैं.
absolutely.
That किसने बोला था वो famous statement? Totti ने बोला था, you can cheat on your wife but not on your club. I don't know who said that.
Yeah,
So
Hmm.
it resonates, and it's
I
not.
think Cantona had a similar quote, or
yeah,
like Bergkamp, one of the two. Someone
Yeah, I know कोई तो ये बोला था, but it's not funny. It's actually resonates in your ear, And Ajay, going through miseries in life, रोज गाली देते हैं. अजय का हम लोग Monday के morning जब ही Roma loses, we see his video, and Ajay is like this हार गए, लेकिन that weekend he's dressed up in the Roma kit to
Yeah,
support the team. So कौस्तुभ, तू जो बोला, अभी के जो fans रहेंगे, football fans, they might not be able to connect as much as what we did. And फ्रांचेस्को टॉटी बोलेंगे तो अजय को फ्लैशबैक हो जाएगा immediately, when the, of course, a Fab Four Kaustubh के लिए means something else, because for me Maldini, so it is nostalgic value. It represents what our club represents. So it is very rare, and 3 generations एक dynasty है. I think football fans would root for it, not just the Milanista in me or anyone. Football fans in general would root for this dynasty to continue.
And a lot of times it's
Absolutely,
like very personal as well, because we have different memories associated with different players or different things in football. Basically, as you said, कि Fab Four की अगर हम बात करते हैं, I would have a different memory. You can have a different memory, and that's probably the gist of it.
that's,
Because
that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of
yeah,
it.
and the reason why we start to, at least us, as far as I know, a lot of us follow the clubs we do or the game we do because of the values or
Right.
a certain sort of hook which made us watch the sport. And for Milan, as you mentioned, a lot of Milan fans hold this thing very close to their chest as well. That this is our value, this is our tradition. When abhi again, both different talking point hai. The club, the is more of a company now, but that always stays. जब भी कोई youth product खेलता है, you
Yeah. True
just
for
want
it.
them to score 20 goals that season,
And Ajay, I tell
even
you
though
one
it's
thing.
impossible.
I can tell you one thing very proudly. I know a lot of my Milan fans from the group are seeing this. A lot of fans have, I'm not saying they've stopped supporting Milan, but since the time
Yeah,
Paolo has left, they are kind
connection.
of indifferent to it. वो एक मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना
Yeah.
connection टूट गया है. And it's not
Right.
होते हैं यार अजय, you see people come and go, but what जो बुरा लगा था is how he was treated. I think the way he left, but it's just another thing. And I would just want to before we ended, I would a small anecdote. In 2005 when Milan lost at the Istanbul match, the Champions League, a lot of players wanted to leave, including Pirlo. Pirlo
Right.
was apparently very depressed.
Yeah.
Sir Alex Ferguson was all over both of them. Actually, he wanted both of them, Gattuso and Pirlo. A lot of players were leaving, and जैसे बोलते हैं कि Paulo was a huge figure that time to tell them that guys, we'll win it again. Don't worry, stay here. We'll do it together as a team. We have to work it together. That is why if you see in the 2007 finals ke baad, if you see the reactions, more
Yeah.
of them ran to Paulo first. That okay, and of course everyone knew he's in this twilight of his career, right? When Paulo kabhi
Right.
bichara
Of
ek
course.
injury, he's out. So you
Yeah.
see after the final whistle, everyone ran to him. Kaka was fresh. Kaka was new. People thought Kaka would win the Ballon d'Or when he won 2005, when they lost. So it just means that he held on to the club so tightly at probably at a very crucial time. Milan would have disintegrated maybe. Imagine losing a
Yeah.
Pirlo back then. So एक disintegrate हो जाता शायद वो मिलान, एक midfield का बहुत बड़ा link टूट जाता हमारा, and we came back and won it in 2007. So Ajay, there's so many things. I can't just point out one thing what Paulo means to us. It's just small एक बोले a tip से सरोवर बनता है types, something like that. I can
Right.
go on for
Right.
hours. It's just what he means to all of us, and the word means to so much.
Now, one more thing that a lot of people don't really talk about, and it's not covered much either, but I've read it, that Cesare Maldini's Milan exit as a board member or a higher up was also
Yeah.
not really pretty.
Yes.
Neither was Daniel's. But
All three,
again,
yes.
the weird part about Cesare Maldini was that he was sort of given his own desk alag se, in an isolated corner that you go work there. We don't, which is highly disrespectful for someone who knows the club inside out. But to make sure that Cesare Maldini himself was accepted into the newer generation, he gave up on his addictions
Yeah.
such as smoking.
Smoking.
So
Yep.
he gave up all of that just so he gets accepted into the Milan environment again, which is actually something very, very few people will do, because addictions are not an easy
Easy
thing
to
to
get.
give up on. That
Right.
too so quickly. He gave up on all of that so that Milan could accept him into the setup. वो नहीं करा. That's like a different story altogether. Because
Tangent.
बहुत सारी stories यहाँ पे हैं which can't,
Yeah. And
uh,
Ajay,
which we can't
do
speak
you know
in
that
detail.
the last Paulo game was against Roma actually at San Siro?
It was the home
Uh,
game was against
the
Roma.
home game or the last, of course, the home game last San Siro, and of course, the last of Fiorentina tha. But it's just a small sad thing. The respect he got at Florence, was probably
Yeah.
more than what he got by the Curva, and I think
That
it is
is,
just so
Chintan, that
sad.
is that is the topic for a whole different discussion.
Hmm.
The
Yeah, my
Baresi,
heart burns.
Maldini.
I was, by the way, if you know, every single Roma player, of course, went and said, and
Of course,
I read one article where they were miming the word sorry to him, like, whatever it is.
yeah,
It's your last game. Roma won that game, actually. Milan lost
yeah,
that
me
game.
too, me too.
And I don't think anyone cared about that loss, and
Yeah,
it's just that his last game in Florence, the ovation he got was just a little sad. And of course, Italian ke extremist fans kaise hote. They of course
bilkul,
said that
bilkul.
our captain is only Baresi. And to
Right,
all respect to Baresi, man, another legend, another topic altogether.
of course.
But just it's probably जो 2 बार हुआ मेरे साथ. We wanted Paolo to get the deserved farewell. Probably रेड कार्पेट में उसको विदा करना था. दोनों बार उसकी
Right.
एग्जिट ऐसी हुई है, which is probably the only black spot for us.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And, coming back to Daniel Maldini, of course, he is, not with Milan anymore. And if he ends up going to Inter, we manifested this on this particular podcast discussion. वो तो होने वाला है. But this is basically Daniel Maldini in Italy colors, training colors, of course. And this was his
Man.
first press conference. And I mean, these words, right? Walking into Coverciano, यहाँ पे थोड़ा typo किया है
Yeah.
FTV ने. Coverciano is the Italy training center. And seeing photos of
Yeah.
my father and grandfather is a beautiful feeling. I mean, I see, यार चिंतन तू बोलता है, as a Roma fan, I was so happy seeing Daniel Maldini kind of make his debut. I can't even imagine what you and the rest of the Milan fans must be going through. And this is the ultimate moment, right? Playing for the Azzurri.
Yeah, मैं जैसे बोला ना, it's like I'm seeing it as a proud father बोल सकते हैं, कि oh my god, like this is happening. It's like, bhai, you do well. I hope you even score against Milan. By everything for you, man. It's something like that. It just comes from the heart. And I swear, when he comes on as a sub or he starts, I'll be the first one standing and clapping alone at my house. And it deserves it. That this dynasty deserves to grow. Not just for me as a Milan fan, but for football fans in general. That we want something so glorified and something like this to continue. You want this dynasty to continue.
Bilkul.
Like
Bilkul.
weirdly enough, like one last point, Cesare Maldini, if you read about it, Cesare Maldini didn't really want Paolo Maldini to become a footballer. And he,
Yes.
from the very beginning, was clear that do not associate me to him, largely because he wanted him to be his own man.
Different
Which is
personality. Yes.
what Daniel Maldini has actually
Said it.
sort of mentioned as well. I don't associate myself much with that name, obviously, to take pressure off his own shoulders. But again, that thing is like carried on in the family as well, amongst a lot of other things.
That is the reason why he does not want to take the number 3 ever. He said that I don't want that additional burden also, which is fair. I think he wants to create his own identity, which is fine. And of course, the jersey is always going to be retired till another Maldini ever comes into Milan and wears that. So it's a very good gesture. But I'm very happy with that decision. To be very honest, had he been a center back, I would have been like, "Bhai, le jersey, yaar, ek din ke liye to pehen le." But if he's not a center back, probably you can say fair enough, But Ajay, like, it is generally what I feel, something which is going to be sung for ages,
Right.
generations to go, not just us, but when we pass it on, it'll be said that a father's son and a grandson played for the same club, played from the same national team.
Absolutely, man. I think that's the most fitting way to end this discussion. I think there is nothing else that needs to be said or done. That's
But
just a
before we go, if we can find it, Sir Alex Ferguson ने जो बोला था Paolo के लिए, I will never forget that, because जब हमने discuss किया Cesare कैसा था, straight face man. So I'm sure Kaustubh, he went and asked him that I want Paolo. So he said, I am Milan, my son is Milan, and his son will always be Milan, and that resonates in your ear. And Sir Alex was like, boss, that's it. That was the end of the conversation. It didn't even go ahead, So I keep telling my wife that I am Milan, my son is Milan, and my generation will be Milan, But you can replace the word with, for me, I'll tell you a very emotional fact. Milan bhi hai / Maldini bhi kar sakta hai. I'm a Maldini fan. My son will be a Maldini fan. Probably my generations will be Maldini fans.
Fair. I think, yeah, I mean, that's. Oh, I'm at a loss of words. I mean, you said it.
Goosebumps.
Sir Alex was at a loss of words. I mean, this is the article that you were mentioning about. When I met his father, he was quite formidable. I got a shake of the head. That's all I got. And of course, he said that my grandfather is Milan, my father is Milan, my sons are Milan. Forget it.
Amazing, man.
Iconic.
Amazing. Iconic. His gold chain is just iconic, man.
This is aura. I know Calafiori के ऊपर simp करते हैं और aura, but look at this. This is complete aura.
You can't even have that in 2024. Like that
Nah.
personality. Instead of the robots we have today, the personality-less players that walk around, no one can match that. अब उसे aura बोलो या whatever word you want to have for it, you can't replicate it anymore.
At 50 years, him getting out of his sports car with his glares on, it's a meme actually. That I still my jaw drops. That still is more aura than any of the current players.
Absolutely. And what a legacy, man. I mean, we spoke for about 40 odd minutes, and I know Chintan, you poured your heart out, and Kaustubh obviously has worked in detail, like all the stories about Cesare, about Paolo, all the snippets that hopefully jo aap log dekh rahe ho, you did not know about. So I hope that you've stayed until this point of the discussion and you've been enriched by probably one of football's greatest families, the Maldini family. That's it for this video. Any parting thoughts before we end quickly, Chintan, Kaustubh?
Kaustubh.
No, I would say I don't think there will be a family like that in the future either. And I seriously hope Daniel Maldini has a kid as soon as possible and we have a fourth one. No pressure.
ये होगी ना
No pressure.
Indian uncle वाली बात.
Indian वाली बात.
शादी कर लो, बच्चे कर लो. Family
Ending
business
it
पे आ
on an
जाओ.
Indian note.
Yeah. Nothing, man. It's just that I know Daniel is in Monza. I hope he plays for Italy. I hope he has an amazing career. Probably, I just wish I can see him with an armband with a Milan jersey. I hope to see Paolo back at Milan. Long may this continue. May the gods be blessed, and long may this continue. That's it.
Thanks a ton, guys. Thanks a ton for sharing out, this amazing conversation, dishing out this fab talk. I got a lot of nostalgia, and we are nostalgia merchants. I hope all of you listening into this, watching, also had a good time as we relived, one of the most iconic players, of course, Paolo Maldini from our generation, and his father Cesare, and now Daniel. Thank you so much for watching. Do like the video; it helps the YouTube algorithm. Share it with your friends, especially fans of Maldini, and of course, subscribe to Calcio Charcha and continue your support. I'm Ajay Menon. As Chintan, Kaustubh. Thank you so much once again. Until next time. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.